Hello, my name is Colt. I am in ORGL 4223 course at Rogers State University. This is my presentation of our bibliography. Welcome to the impact of the change. Tired of climate change not being impacted from so-called changes? The impact of change shows you exactly what the United States is currently doing not to help this issue, in the environment, what they need to do in the world to solve the issue. So in this presentation that I'll be taking you guys through, this presentation will basically go over some couple slides that will show you guys some key factors into why the United States is not doing as much, as well as why they're the number one leaders in world population climate change. So, starting with the first slide, who is to blame? Fossil companies. So, fossil companies in the U.S. There's over 500,000 different companies that correlate to fossil fuels being used in the United States. So according to a major analysis published in 2019 or 2017, 100 fossil fuel firms are responsible for 70% of the global greenhouse gas emissions over the preceding 2 decades. So during this time, as well as now, this number has now rose to about 80 to 85% that we can see, as well as it is now a huge third of the worldwide emissions, according to the studies we see. Different companies, for example, like Exxon, Amazon, Walmart, and different large-scale companies, what we'll get later into, are a big leading possibility in the fossil fuel community in the United States. So this being said, a lot of other countries have these vast majority companies in their countries, but they have regulations and things like that that proceed to restrict these companies from abusing the environment as much as the United States. The United States doesn't have these regulations and law says it does, but they're not pushed very thoroughly to the public. So the public knows about these. These aren't they're not being enforced very much at all. As well as we see that being not enforced in the years of 2010 to current during presidential campaigns, just like recently in the past years of the Trump administration that we'll get into. You don't see this being pushed as Trump himself publicly states and says that he doesn't care about the environment and different things of that nature. This being said, corporations have a significant effect on climate actions for reasons just going from fossil fuels to input into the world and to the mass circulation of their product. They also put a lot of forth and effort into molding public narrative, making sure that they are known to being and telling people that they are on top of helping the environment. They are making sure that their products are being used to help benefit the world, as well as that they are doing actions that help limit the footprint that they're causing. This isn't true. For example, ExxonMobil, a gas company, knew about the climate change for decades, according to a 2015 investigation. And in the Climate News, they attempt to oppose steps to reduce emissions. Such relevance have fueled widespread public outrage. So in this concept, they were stating that they were going to help the environment. They're going to help the United States push for their incentive of protecting the environment and climate change up to 50% that they could do. This was actually a false thing they said in 2015, and a study came out shortly after, in a couple of years, being showed that they are a lead causer in about 5 to 10% of their company is leading in that area's fossil fuel avoidment or engagement to the country. So this was a big thing on the relevance of the worldwide fuel spread of publicly towards everything. And it says, well, it says many people know that now believe that such firms have said and done everything possible to ensure that they can continue to exploit and burn fossil fuels at any cost. So this is just a penny pincher statement. Statement being made that penny pinching companies are trying to reduce their footprint, saying that they're reducing their footprint, keeping people on their side to indulge in their product, but not being actually conservative to the environment. False media. This is what we're talking about. ExxonMobil. Fossil fuel companies have done a wonderful job of portraying environmental concerns, at least according to the study. Exxon CEO, later became the U.S. Secretary of State, argued repeatedly that reducing oil consumptions to combat climate change would make poverty reductions more difficult. They've had this talk point since 1950. Said if you clean up the sector in any manner, you're basically unfairly harming the poor. It doesn't matter that the costs don't have to be passed on to the general population. this is coming into effect that these companies are trying to hide behind public public indulging of making sure that the public knows that they're on their side, but they're trying to protect the the poorer people in the area. So that meaning in the state in the country. So this statement was said that if the world was going to be pushed, these companies are going to be pushed to help the environment more, then more things are going to be pushed back onto the general population, general public, and it would be unfair to the lower financial standings of other U.S. citizens. So this was something that's been said since the 1950s that they had been talked about, as well as talked about in other companies as talking about this to making sure that their impact as a company financially isn't affecting lower income families and population citizens, things in that nature. Moving on to Amazon. Amazon claims to be devoted and involved in environmental stewardship. As we all know, Amazon is being a top tier company that targets achieving network carbon emissions of 2040 and running activities entirely renewable by energy 2025. As this statement might be true as we were getting into these years, the current things they were doing in the past were not helping at all in the climate change population and the footprint they were causing. The firm promotes consumerism, sorry, I can't read that word, shipment and consumers at its heart, shows that for greener shipping options have been passed over by fear of alienating customers, but reports show a new plan, electric delivery trucks and things in that nature. Amazon is one of the companies that they are advertising very well being pushed for. Their footprint will be reduced. Their carbon footprint will be reduced in climate change. The things right now that they are able to do aren't the standards they're looking for. So right now you could say they're false advertising because they're not able to indulge on the things that they're trying to promise currently. Right now, their fast shipment, 2-day prime shipment. Amazon has the leading leading delivery in the United States. They have 10% more trucks than our own postal service, and 20% more trucks than any other delivery service, FedEx, UPS, things in that same field. They're the leading cause of the footprint. Their footprint is huge in the gas and vehicle industry, being that this delivery time is so substantial that people are requesting, as well as the trash of production of things like that of Amazon packages is now getting recycled, but previously it was being reduced back, trash gets to the ocean, gets reduced back into this carbon footprint that they're causing, that we're seeing a lot more because these packages are going out so frequently, as well as the companies becoming so bigly. Netflix is one that I did not think to find on my study. Netflix was a business model that cannot be sustained. I did not know this until researching this. The waste of materials money for them to launch big budget projects and then ban them after a single season. Furthermore, their business strategy promotes individuals to utilize the internet, which contributes to overall digital traffic and energy consumption. So with this being said, seasons of TV shows are having big construction and buildings and things like that built in LA, different places like that for movie sets. The carbon footprint they're causing here is mass. It's just basically a pollution issue. So pollution-wise, being more carbon footprint on their side of more things that they're doing and causing these huge sets and things like that in manner to make it where these projects are being abandoned after a single season. They're not utilizing what they need to be utilizing for these mass in projects that they're working and spending millions of dollars on. The reinvestment ROIs on those are there for Netflix that's seeing it, but not in the environmental way. Globally, fossil fuels generate power. Therefore, the more people you use the internet, the larger daily emissions will be. This right here was something that I thought was kind of crazy, that there's fossil fuels generating power, and then people using the internet, using more to keep the internet going and things like that. The fossil fuels being used, it's affecting the United States, is powering things like electricity, internet, things in that nature, that is causing a mass larger footprint for them because of these issues. That is an issue that is going to be caused by the world basically not getting onto solar power and things like that we're adjusting to. But this is still a false media that they've been trying to persuade that they're on these things, but a lot of their ways of promoting this service is not fossil friendly. Who is to blame? The rich. According to a recent worldwide research conducted by the University of Leeds, the richest 10% of the individuals utilize almost 20% times more energy than the poorest 10% of people across the 86 nations. According to the report, transportation accounts for a large share of affluent people's increased consumption, flights, vacations, long distance traveling, and large automobiles. In this percentage, it says 86 nations. the United States makes up a 2.5% of these nations, of these rich. This being said, the carbon footprint of people flying, vacationing, long distance, driving, automobiles, cars, things in these nature. China and the United States are the two most not cost efficient, cost leading in fossil fuels and the carbon footprint that they're causing on the world and climate change. United States being up there with China, we're focusing on the United States as this research was conducted in the United States, being shown that China and the United States are both very similar. The rich, that's just meaning like toward people who have more money because they're traveling more, able to do more things than poor people. Their carbon footprint is more because they're able to do more than others that do not have those funds. Reasonings: because the wealth have significant more options in terms of how they spend their money, just like we're talking about. If you're wealthy enough to buy a large automobile, you're also wealthy enough not to own one. If wealthy individuals want to live flashy and wasteful lifestyles, they have responsibility for this, according to the Steinberg research that we found. She also claims that the wealthy individuals have more clout in government and the private industries that shape the government policies. If we're talking about who has decision-making authority in general, and generally affluent individuals in various roles. This being said, majority of families who are rich or have money or in people in power have more than one vehicle. These vehicles are airlines vehicles cause a carbon footprint, but having these more vehicles and things like that, they can go towards electricity vehicles and other beneficial options of travel publicly. Just because you have the money to rent a private jet to go for an hour flight to across the state doesn't mean you have the money to rent to buy an electric vehicle that is not getting a fossil footprint on the world, just because it benefits you. This is what this was going into, talking about the rich and how this can be affecting. It is a small input of fossil fuels and climate change in the United States, but as the United States has a huge population of a majority of wealthy people, this is a big thing for the United States leading. Rich countries. So this goes back to the United States being one of the richest countries there is. The richest nations in the world have emitted the great majority of emissions of many of them continue to emit far more than poorer countries. In 1751, the United States released significantly more CO2 than any other country, according for 1/4 of the global emissions, despite China's massive increase in emissions over the last decade. Emissions per person are still less than half of those in the United States, and those 1 billion people living in Africa each emit 1/12 of what the typical person in the United States does. This is a huge pusher for the United States. The United States, this is a huge advocate against the United States, that our country has these people, our richer countries have more people that are promoting, are putting more CO2, and our carbon footprint is bigger in the world. This study was done in 2014, 2015, showing that this is still a true thing. But back in 2002 and 2003, another study was showing that China was the leading because they were the richest at the time. Still back and forth between us and China, as it said in the study. The United States is to blame. This is a huge point in the PowerPoint as we get started here. Look at the chart. This is our CO2 levels from 1850 to 2011 of the world total. Just as we're talking about the European Union, China, the United States, total percentages. As you see, United States is at 27%, and Europe is 25%, China 11%. This is from 2011. If I would have done one from 2011 and to now, it would show a larger footprint for China and a less for Europe, as they have fixed and reduced their global footprint of CO2. Let's start with the question of who is to blame for global warming that the globe is experiencing now and will continue to experience in the future. You may have heard that China just overtook the United States as the world's greatest emitter of the greenhouse gases. That is correct. Although it is a recent event with the last decade. Looking back at this time, the United States has consistently been the leading emitter. According to the World Resources Institute, from 1850 to 2011, the United States contributed 27% of the world's total carbon dioxide emissions as a single country. No other country even came close. In fact, which Europe did at 25. According to the recent study by University of Chicago, Raymond Piram Humbert, sorry for my pronunciation on that, a sudden pulse of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that raises concentration to 1250 parts per million per industrial levels. So, this all being said, this is from a study that I was able to find in my references that you guys can go back to from this chart. This being said, that in the atmosphere takes carbon dioxide takes, let's see, which were around 2,800 parts per million. I believe 900 parts per million in the atmosphere after 100 years. In fact, it'll take another 900 years for concentration to drop to 1675. CO2 in the atmosphere takes a very long time to be out of the atmosphere. It takes over 50 to 100 years for so much CO2 to be removed out of the out of the atmosphere, not going to the ozone layer or affecting anything. So this being the carbon footprint of the United States pushing that right now is a leading substantial towards that. That is not good for the United States. It is one main reasons why you can blame the United States in climate changing not being affected in the world and how they are one of the leading causes of it. Presidents adding to the blame for the United States. My big points on here are just talking about recently from the Trump administration because it's relevant to everybody here that in the past couple of years that you'll side with, and as well as you'll understand and recognize it. Other presidents like Reagan, as well as the Bush administration from the 70s to 2000s, are both two presidents that also caused a huge issue in global warming and in climate changing that did not help significantly for the United States at all. I did not touch on any really big points on theirs. I just wanted to mention that because I just touched on a big bunch of them from Trump, so then we all are relevant and we know what is going on. So climate change produced by humans, according to Mr. Trump, is a hoax. He said this publicly on a news report before he was even a president. He was promised to defund the Environmental Protection Agency in almost every manner. Mr. Trump has picked the business-backed competitive enterprise to lead his Environmental Protection Agency transition team. So when this was happening, President Obama came to defend these claims and worrying about brought to the greenhouse emissions because he was a big pusher for trying to help the environment. These things came from the Paris Treaty as well as other things that Obama was trying to transaction basically in the military, less carbon footprint in the military, as well as overall the Obama presidential was trying to reduce carbon footprint in the United States. Trump did not care, publicly even said that he was not caring about it. However, experts in climate change policy warned that Mr. Trump follows through on his campaign pledges, that legacy will swiftly crumble. As a result, the world may be powerless to prevent the world's effects of global warming, such as rising sea levels, major droughts, and food shortages, and more violent floods and storms. If Trump backs away from that, it takes much less likely that the world will ever meet the target, especially ensuring that we will enter the danger zone, said this researcher from the Princeton University professor. So this study being done by a Princeton University professor who was very well known and he claims that and is at the Society of Climate Change and board of ways with that, published this report on the state of climate science, as well as made sure this was an international affair. Going forward, this was a huge push against Trump that he was not climate safe, that he was going to cause a huge disadvantage that we've been working towards to reduce our carbon footprint. The 8 years that he was president caused not a massive, but a significant decline in the progression that we had going into the years from past presidencies. According to the Climate Interactive, a scientific think group that supplies statistics to numerous countries, the United States initiates will account for around 20% of the projected greenhouse gas reductions under their Paris Agreement from 2016 to 2030. However, the planned policy initiates in the United States under the Trump administration, the math of carbon reduction would be much more difficult to maintain. According to Climate Interactive, experts with Trump in the White House and Republican majorities in both chambers, there is a little optimism that the Clean Power Plan will survive before the Supreme Court or the government action to achieve the United States Commission under the Paris Agreement will be taken. Mr. Sturman, a researcher, wrote, worse, other major emirates, particularly India, now have no incentive to keep their Paris Treaty if the United States won't. Why should emerging countries? This being said, Trump actually did pause the Paris Agreement. So the Paris Agreement went into effect, meaning that they were trying to, all countries were going to be more efficient and more effective towards the environment. He went to an extent of not being able to help fund it, not be able to support it, necessarily not like physically pause it, but it came to a leading thing that it was not being progressed in the way that we wanted this to be seen. This was reenacted when Biden came back into service or came back into presidential service after a few months ago. But this is something that Trump hit on really bigly with that he was not a supporter of this. He thought it was a hoax. He did not want to put any money towards it. He thought this money could be used for the military as well as more use of the United States' resources. What have we learned? Thank you all for being here for my presentation. It went a little long. I apologize. One biggest thing you need to know, largest footprint, 70% of the world's footprint in global warming is from the United States alone. This being said, from our charts and everything you've seen, that 70% is coming up from CO2, pollution, fossil fuels being used. That percentage is done from a study. You can check my references as well, that this is a proven thing that the United States is not helping any way they're helping, but it's not helping progressively than other countries. They still have a big issue. They've always been the big issue. Ignorant companies, Amazon, mistyped that. Sorry about that. Amazon, Netflix, Exxon, Mobil, Samsung, and Walmart. These companies are going in a way that is helping the environment now. But before they are not, they were not helping. They were ignorant of the situation. They were ignorant of what was going on. I'm hoping that these companies can now help change that swayed for the United States and go in that way. False leadership. This going back to the Reagan administration, the Bush administration, the Trump administration, all being said that these things are not helping. These administrations that are leading up to this did not help in the United States push, as well as it gave the world a big way to wake up and realize that the United States isn't going to really help effectively under certain presidencies for the climate and the CO2 and the fossil fuels. These things can't really be avoided because you don't really know what their thoughts are until people start running for office, as well as people start supporting them. These things, I think, the United States for future candidates need to be looked into way more, as well as need to be a way bigger pushing point on the presidential leadership candidates than what it is currently. Thank you all for listening to my PowerPoint on why the United States is not helping climate change and why it is going to be the end of the United States eventually. Not the end, but not supportive at all. So thank you guys so much for listening to me. My name is Colt Berry, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful end of semester. Good luck. Thank you all. Take care.